Hello?
Hi, it's Michael there.
Yeah, is this Ben?
Yeah, this is.
Hey, nice to meet you. On the phone, I guess.
Nice to meet you, man.
Thanks for taking the time to do this, by the way.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for having me.
Are you back in Seattle right now?
Yeah.
Very nice. Yeah, I caught your show at OSU last week. It was
Oh, you
pretty.
were there?
Yeah, it was pretty good. I had seen you at Sasquatch, but I hadn't gotten to see any of your shows yet, and I was pretty impressed with it.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Definitely. All right, let me just go set up a recorder here and then get on our way. So I saw that you made the double XL freshman class list. Congrats on that, man.
Thank you. Thank you.
What were your thoughts on some of the picks that they had for it?
For the pictures?
I mean just like the picks for like who they chose to be on it.
Oh, gotcha. I think that this year in particular was a wide diversity of artists in terms of kind of how they made that list, and I think that was the cool thing about this year. You have a lot of different ways that you can make that list, whether that be, industry buzz or fan base or, cosigns or, mixtapes or albums. I think that, touring, there's a lot of different ways, and that list really kind of embodied a wide variety of artists. I thought that it was cool.
Yeah, it seemed like a pretty nice, like just kind of, like you said, an amalgamation of different styles and such. And speaking of just the different things, I've noticed a lot in your delivery. Like you'll have a lot of phrasing and slant rhymes and such. And I was kind of wondering if you have a background in like any spoken word or poetry.
Yeah, I grew up, doing spoken word, and it was real big in the late '90s, early thousands, and when I was a young kid, so that was definitely a part of my musical upbringing.
Very cool. How'd you get into that?
It was just kind of part of the community. Like there wasn't a lot of shows, there wasn't a lot of opportunities for shows to perform. Particularly for kids like 15, 16 years old. If I wasn't as big as it is now, it wasn't as big of a scene in Seattle in particular, and it was just a smaller community of people. So a lot of times, all that we didn't have a venue to perform in necessarily. We had, a community center or an open mic, and we had kind of each other to, we were freestyling and everything, but we were also writing poetry and, writing spoken word pieces. So that was kind of intermittently mixed in with what we were doing.
Yeah, I read that there was some sort of ordinance that Seattle had that like prohibited, that just made it like really hard for all age shows.
Yeah, that was back in, I don't know when they finally lifted that, but yeah, that was back in the day.
That's insane. I'm from Huntington Beach, which is just Southern California area, and we don't suffer from that as much as just there's no venues, period.
Yeah.
Kind of sucks.
Definitely.
Here, sorry, just a sec. Gotta tell my roommate to turn stuff down. Sorry about that.
No problem.
So did spoken word kind of lead you into rap, or was that something that just was kind of a separate process?
I think that rap led me into spoken word more. And spoken word was never like, a main outlet for me. I think that, writing is writing. And sometimes you write to a beat, sometimes you write just to write. And, it's still a process of mine to this day. So, I think that they kind of go hand in hand. I don't consider myself a spoken word artist. I don't consider myself, I'm a rapper first and foremost. So that was my first introduction to music was rapping.
And do you often write to beats, or can you do it without it, or what could you kind of describe? I guess your process of how that works.
Sometimes most of the time I would say I write to the beat. There's times that, I me to just write in general. I do a lot of writing that has nothing to do with rhyming. That has nothing to do with music. And then there's times where I write, like Wings. I wrote as initially it was just a piece with no beat. It was just a spoken word piece that turned into a song. So they kind of varies. I would say the majority of the time I write to a beat.
Yeah, I got to ask about Wings. I'm a U of O student, and I mean, the connection with Nike is pretty big here. And I noticed that there's only really been like 1 or 2 stops in Eugene since that was released. I was wondering, like, have you had any difficulty booking shows around or at the university?
Not at all. No.
So you don't really know if Phil Knight's heard Wings or not?
I know that Nike's aware of it, and that's all that I know. But there's no difficulty in terms of a fan base in Eugene. We have a great fan base in Eugene.
Yeah, the name is definitely getting a lot bigger. I remember I saw Other Side, like, probably around a year ago or so, and not many people had really heard of it. And I had a bunch of friends from Seattle, and they all just started repping your stuff. It seems like, that home base is really a big part of your career and getting it started.
Yeah, I think that, Seattle has been instrumental in, really our movement and getting our music out there. And I think that that's a way that I've always wanted to do it. There, you talk to, majority of people in the music industry, and if you can't get it cracking at home, then it's going to be really difficult to spread your music nationally and internationally. So I think that was a logical step, and a step that I always wanted was to make sure that I was good at home, and that I was repped properly in my hometown, and then spread it from there.
And it seems a lot that, like, the internet and social media in particular has kind of been supplanting the role of record companies. I mean, you guys do most of your own videos and you self-book and all that kind of stuff. Could you talk kind of a little bit about the influence and the role that plays in just shaping your career?
The influence of the internet?
Yeah, the internet and social media, and kind of, I guess, the freedoms, maybe negatives and positives of how it affects the music as a whole.
I think that the internet is, it's a means of communication now in 2012. It's how we're able to connect with our fans, how we're able to be humans in a visible setting. You can really kind of get personal with a lot of these social networking opportunities, social media opportunities. Whether that's Instagram pictures and just kind of documenting your life, or whether that's Twitter and your thoughts, Facebook in terms of having a Facebook fan page and being able to interact with them through that. It's just the current state of the music industry. And I think that whether or not you're on a major label or any label, or if you're an independent artist like we are, either way, you need to have all of those avenues covered, and that's the way that you connect and relate to a fan base outside of just the music.
And you met Ryan Lewis through social media kind of things, through MySpace, right?
I did. I met my girlfriend through MySpace, who I've been with for a long time. So MySpace was huge in my life.
Very nice. And she currently tour manages for you guys, right?
She does, yeah. She tour manages. She's the director of operations. I was just bouncing a song idea off of her, and we're gonna, bounce some ideas and write together in a little bit. So she does a lot for the company.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of these people that obviously through MySpace and just the Seattle music and general scene, a lot of these people that you've met have been with you, from the beginning. I'd say Ryan Lewis is, a pretty huge part of your craft. Could you describe the relationship with him and how that affects the operation as a whole?
Yeah, Ryan and I are, we're a team. We are a creative team. We do pretty much everything ourselves, from the videos to the photography to the graphic arts. And we have a team of people that help us with all these, but it's a very small group, and usually we're kind of overseeing everything. Ryan is a very creative person. He's done the majority of our videos, directed them, edited them, and he's obviously my producer. So So, I help him on the production side. I have a background in making beats as well. And, I'm able to communicate ideas and thoughts to him. He does the same thing with me in terms of writing and going through and editing all that I write and the direction of songs and what it needs and what it doesn't need. We're 100% a creative team.
And I've read it a lot that you guys kind of describe yourselves as perfectionists. Do you think that has more of a good effect? I mean, are there ever some negatives to I guess that kind of dedication to the craft?
Yeah, I think that there's in terms of being an artist, there's a fine line between thinking and feeling. And I would say for Ryan and myself, we can overthink things sometimes. I mean, you're in that place of overthinking. Sometimes it blocks the creative output. And then on top of that, just not having as much content to put out into the world. But I'm still, at the end of the day, I'm happy with our process, and I think that it comes down to, I would rather have quality over a mass amount of content out there.
And yeah, I mean, if you don't, I guess not counting the Versus Redux, there really hasn't been, I mean, an album or an EP kind of a thing for about 3 years. Are you currently working on anything?
Yeah, we're almost done with our album.
You guys got a release date in mind, or kind of an area?
Yeah, looking at October.
Very cool. Yeah, because I mean, especially with Language of My World, I feel like a lot of the subject matter kind of seemed to center around struggles with addiction and your personal philosophies, and I just saw Victory Lap. It kind of has that whole rise to the national scene thing. Where are you getting your inspiration from nowadays for a lot of these tracks?
Anywhere I can. Just trying to have my eyes open and be aware and be receptive to something greater than myself, and that I hope that it translates into the writing, so it can be anything, anytime, anywhere.
And going back to some of the people that you shared the cover with Double XL, artists get asked a lot about influences, and like you said, there's a pretty wide variety of rap styles and subject matter on that. And I kind of am aware that a lot of times the influences don't necessarily show up maybe in the lyrics or in the beats. But I was just wondering what some of your influences are, whether it be rap music or not, and who they are and what kind of impacts they've made on anything from writing to performing to the work ethic.
I think work ethic, I've been really inspired by Lil Wayne. He's somebody that stylistically and in terms of his work ethic, I've been inspired by for about the last 8 years. Kanye is a big person. John Coltrane, Basquiat, David Bowie. Those are people that I would consider to be my greatest inspiration. What
is it about Coltrane that you connect to?
Just the mood that he creates. There's, just with melody and with cadence and with punctuation and with space. He's a master at all of those things. And just overall the mood, like, can't listen to hip hop all the time. And, Coltrane, since I was in high school, has just been that break for me. Or one of the many breaks, but he's, I'd say one of the few breaks, but he is one of those breaks, and he's somebody that really inspires me.
Yeah, going back to Lil Wayne, I mean, this is more kind of a personal thing, but I've heard so many people in the industry, just, artists and people that I look up to, the music that I kind of like, saying that they really, really dig Lil Wayne. And I haven't ever really checked out, his stuff other than when you come into contact with it at parties or something. But I was wondering if you had any suggestions for, like, because he just puts out so much stuff, and I don't even know where to start to try to get an idea of, like, what kind of stuff I should listen to. Do you have any suggestions on that?
Yeah, I would say Carter 1, Carter 2. You know what I want to do, because you're not the only person to do that. I want to put together like a Lil Wayne mixtape, like Macklemore's opinion of Lil Wayne's greatest hits. But yeah, I think Carter 1, Carter 2. And
you mentioned Dedication and Other Side.
Dedication 1, Dedication 2. When the drought is over, he's got some great mixtapes, and it's like not, I wouldn't say like as a whole project that there's any one thing that I'm like, this is amazing front to back. Just some of it's not exactly my tip, but I think that Lil Wayne is one of the most charismatic and one of the best rappers of our generation, and one of the most energetic live performers, and somebody that is just interesting, man. He's just an interesting person and extremely captivating.
Yeah, I mean his work. I mean, just the body of it is incredibly prolific. I just got a copy of the that interview. They're not the interview. It was like an hour or so long documentary that they did that got a bunch of lawsuits. Have you seen that?
Yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah, I haven't checked it out, but
100 times.
Yeah, when I have the time, I'm interested in checking that out.
Yeah, I watch that when I'm feeling creatively blocked. I just watch certain parts of it. But yeah, I've watched that like probably 50 times at least.
Are there any other methods that you kind of have for writer's block?
Exercise, writing that doesn't have anything to do with music. Writing when you don't want to write. Reading. Yeah, I would say those are the kind of like 4 or 5 things that I go to.
What kind of stuff do you find yourself reading?
I read whatever. I read fiction, nonfiction. I read spiritual books. I never really finish anything. I start a lot of books and I never finish. But yeah, I read kind of whatever's on the bookshelf.
I've noticed that with concepts of spirituality and God and stuff like that, it's kind of worked your way into your music. But I was wondering, if there's any super. I mean, like, I guess what your view is on that kind of stuff.
My view on what?
On spirituality or God, just because I've seen it come up in a couple songs, and sometimes I feel like you're relating it more to the ego or to like a more kind of a personal connection with spirituality. But I was wondering what your personal beliefs were with that.
I believe that there's a power greater than myself in the universe. I choose to call that power God. It has no affiliation with any religion. I believe that in order to be successful, in order to be present, in order to be in a place of acceptance, it's important for me to have faith in something that's bigger than me. Because if you only have faith in yourself, I found that I am not God. I cannot play God. The universe is large. It's expansive. It is well beyond my means. I do not control it. I have a certain amount of control over my actions, but the minute that I think that I'm God, or that individuals are God, or that we really have control over this, that's the minute that accepting what happens in my life becomes more challenging, and it becomes almost impossible. So to have a faith in something greater than myself is what I believe in.
Yeah, I've been to a few AA meetings before, and that was one of the things that they really focused on just having something bigger than yourself to kind of keep it going in those areas. Definitely seems like it's something that helps. I've also read about service work as something. I mean, there was that Gateways program you were involved with in your college years. Is that something that you find yourself able to do a lot these days? I mean, what does that mean to you and the music?
Wrapping up this album, there hasn't been a lot of time for service work, but this Friday my girlfriend and I have been working with a group called Youth Ambassadors, and we are putting on an open mic for the kids, and church has been planning it for a long time, and I've been going into high schools, 4 or 5 different high schools throughout the last probably 6 months, and speaking to the kids about what my experience was like in high school and talking about music. We're always kind of doing random service projects, whether that's me talking talking to a group of youth, or you know, just helping out people that need help. I think that that's a great way, particularly in a career that is as narcissistic as being a musician, in particular a rapper. I think it's a great way to get out of yourself and to get perspective on what's really important in life, because it's a lot bigger than the small picture, the immediate picture of, how can I get more fans? How can I attain more money? And how can I, become more famous? I think that it's important to balance that out with giving back.
Especially with, the fan base getting so big these days, and you guys have had a couple international dates. I was wondering what kind of effect that's had on a lot of the shows. I mean, things just seem to be getting so big right now.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, it's definitely growing and has been growing. Sometimes it's hard to kind of I'm not really tracking it right now. We're not going to tour until the fall, so it's tough to say. I know we're playing a lot bigger venues. We are going to be touring internationally, and I know that there's a demand overseas. But I think that, in terms of where my attention has been, it's just on this album. And I'm not really thinking about, how big it's getting or how big it's gotten. I'm more just focusing on making good art.
And they'll definitely pay off whenever album ends up coming out. And going back to, I'm just got a couple more questions here with Sasquatch. I mean, I didn't know that you were actually going to be guesting on what was it, in between Girl Talk and someone else. I saw you come up on the stage. One of my friends said that she saw you over by, I think, the main stage, the smaller one. And I was wondering if there are any acts or any particular artists that you've seen or been listening to lately that you've really been digging.
What was that group that you saw at Sasquatch? Of Monsters of Men. I haven't heard their record, but I watched their set. It was incredible. Let's see, what am I feeling these days? I really like the whole PDE Black Hippie crew out of LA. Kendrick Lamar, Schoolboy Q, Absol. Those guys are incredible. What else am I feeling? I honestly haven't really had that much time to listen to other music.
Yeah, I figured something kind of caught up.
I just got the Big Crit album yesterday, and I just kind of skimmed through it, and it sounds phenomenal. So.
That was Big Trick, you said?
Big Crit, K-R-I-T.
Oh, Big Crit. Yeah, I heard. I think it's called Sometimes. Have you heard that track?
Not sure.
It's the music video is pretty much just him in the back of a truck, just talking about. It's more, I guess, like. When I think of rap, I think there's kind of like inside rap and outside rap. Some people will rap about things going on, on the national scene or whatever. And then there's people like, Childish Gambino or you or Kanye that kind of rap more about things on the inside and vulnerability and emotions and things like that. And it was just a really cool track like that kind of had a similar, very, very objective kind of thought process, I think, to it. Something that comes up a lot in the kind of music that is put out by those artists. It was definitely a cool track. And last question. I think people a lot of the times are more multifaceted, more talented than they may think. A lot of people say, if it wasn't in the music, I wouldn't be doing anything. But I was wondering, if you weren't, if you didn't have a career in music, is there some other area that you could see yourself, being really active in, something else that you would be doing for a living?
Yeah, I would probably be working with youth in some capacity, whether that be a teacher or, starting a program, working, with writing in the youth. I might be doing something with incarcerated youth, working in the jails, working kind of in the system to change the system. I see myself doing something like that if I wasn't making music.
Very nice.
Kind of the work that I was doing before I was making music, so it's something that I'm passionate about as well.
Yeah, all kind of tied in. Well, I want to thank you again for taking the time for doing this. It's one of the first bigger artists that we're getting for this studio.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Definitely. All right. Well, have a good day.